Steward Malta chief hits out at Vitals and government. Hotels and restaurants importing from Sicily to counter price hikes locally, and almost 2,000 people died or disappeared in Mediterranean waters in 2021. All this and more on another episode of Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta Gozo. Welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Matt, joined by my co-host Julian Bonnici, our editor-in-chief, here for another busy evening of Malta's new cycle. You want to kick things off, Julian?
Yeah, so we're starting off with the hospital's concession that's still in the news after Steward Malta's president delivered a sharp rebuke to Vitals Global Healthcare, the company it purchased the controversial hospital's concession from, describing it as negligent and calling out the government for failing to ensure it delivers on its obligations. Nadine Delicata, in a really interesting opinion piece on the Times of Malta, said the difficulties were evident from the start. She said how Steward was approached by the Maltese government to take over the concession in 2018. At the time, it was, quote, in a state of dire emergency. Delicata said, and I'm quoting here again, said it is no secret that VGH, under the tight control of its owners, had not delivered on its obligations, nor had the government demanded they do so. Delicata said, at the time Steward stepped in, there were no funds left to pay the salaries of medical and non-medical staff working in the St. Luke's, Gozo and Karen Gregg's hospitals. She said, this was completely actually unknown to the VGH's own management team at the time, who said they were actually not given any financial visibility from the owners, a really, really major red flag. She said how the government gave Steward just 2 weeks to take over the responsibilities of the concession and ensure that doctors, nurses, cleaners, and everyone whose livelihoods really depended on the hospital's concession could get their salaries paid on time. For those looking for a quick refresher on the story, there's a really good explainer on Lovin Malta called Vitals Explained. However, just to give you a little bit of a little taste of it, VGH, Vitals Global Healthcare, were brought in to take over the concession of 3 state hospitals. However, the deal itself has been mired in corruption allegations, and they actually left the concession with about €36 million in debt, all that Steward was meant to pick up. Delicata has some really, really strong words for the deal itself, saying it was actually worse than many people realize. And she said, and I quote, VGH had created a raft of companies, shifting assets between them and burning through funds. On taking over VGH's operations, Steward also discovered that there were no management accounts at all, and shockingly, there had never been so much as an attempt to audit the company by the relevant authorities. VGH's owners had been left unattended with a massive amount of taxpayer money, with no one checking up on how they were delivering on their commitments. Some really, really shocking words from the person handling the hospital's concession at the moment. Really gives you an insight to what this deal was like in the first place. Just a reminder, this deal was signed by Conrad Mrs. Joseph Muscat et al. About 5 months before a request for proposals was even issued. So really raising major alarm bells about the bill itself. Same Joseph Muscat has made money from a consultancy from the deal after leaving, while it remains under magistrate inquiry and everything to it. Some really shocking claims being made over here, and I hope that the Deputy Prime Minister Chris Fenn and the Prime Minister Robert Abela take immediate action.
Yeah, I think you explained that really well, Julian. Obviously, looking at it from Steward Healthcare's perspective, you can, understand the frustration, right? I mean, even when they spoke out and pointed out discrepancies, they seem to be bearing the brunt of the responsibility that you would expect Vitals to shoulder. But as you said, let's hope this is addressed very soon. Moving on to our next story. Hotels and restaurants are imported from Sicily to counter prices that have been spiking locally. In a statement, shipping company Virtu has said it's gone against global trade trends, maintaining freight costs at pre-COVID levels, and is helping SMEs, that's small to medium-sized businesses, by lowering costs for small to medium-sized commercial vehicles through a number of favourable schemes. In the statement, they said importers sourcing products from Italy and in particular Sicily have not seen an increase in freight charges. Hotels and restaurants are resorting to importation from Sicily to counter the local increase of prices and food products. Obviously, this global inflation comes from the consequences of the pandemic and the UK leaving the EU single market in Brexit. Several food products have, of course, become more expensive, and supermarkets are estimating a 15% price spike.
Yeah, and that price hike isn't going to stop anytime soon. Actually, economists are predicting that the price is actually going to increase throughout 2022. And while what Virtu is doing is actually some really positive news, I have to say it does send a worrying sign to a lot of Maltese businesses out there, who are actually struggling to maintain with their increasing costs. There are many Maltese importers, many Maltese providers, who are losing all these Maltese clientele to go to a Sicilian counterpart that really has no economic interest in what's going on in Malta. I think what it shows is that the government really needs to work hard to help small and medium-sized businesses in Malta to buy Maltese goods and Maltese products. An election is coming up soon, so I'm pretty sure that will be on the cards. If you want to see a little bit more about inflation and the price increase in food and stuff like that, Lovin Malta did a really interesting vox pop about it all. So be sure to check that out on Lovin Malta's Facebook page or any other social media channel. Now from one sea crossing to another that's completely different and far more tragic. In the year of 2021, a shocking total of 1,971 people either died or disappeared within Mediterranean waters. Literally, just you see it from your balcony, from those seas, literally outside of the Maltese walls. So the figure was revealed yesterday during a remembrance ceremony for all those people who have perished out at sea. With Maltese NGO movement Graffiti saying, this is the moment to strongly denounce the deadly violence happening on our borders and calling on all responsible authorities to respect human rights when dealing with the migration crisis. The Mediterranean is one of the most deadly migratory routes, which is scores of people flee war-torn countries and even economic situations to cross the Mediterranean and get to Europe. The Mediterranean is a super dangerous crossing, and the figures speaks for themselves. The UNHCR said over the last decade, so that's within 10 years, the number of people who have died within the Mediterranean Sea exceed 23,000. That's 23,000 men, women, children, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, all dying literally on our shores. Now, what they're calling on, is for the EU institutions to start offering strong assistance measures to ensure Malta and other member states, particularly border ones, can deal with the migration issue safely and while treating the people with dignity. Now, obviously, as we all know, Malta is a border country. We see thousands of migrants reach our shores every year illegally. It's created a very bad situation where integration is not working. There are people dying out there, and it needs to be immediately addressed, whatever the side of the fence you're on. What should be really made clear to a lot of people out there, while the Maltese government does its utmost to try help the situation, really the issue is on an EU front. We see too many countries in the bloc who don't want to help border countries. Now it's time to start demanding our MEPs to start taking some really serious demands on this at the moment.
Yeah, worrying numbers, obviously. I mean, in the past decade alone, 23,000 people died in transit over the Mediterranean Sea, in numbers released by the UNHCR. Movement Graffiti status came out as part of an event which marked the Global Day of Commemoration, which was celebrated across different nations, where people stand in solidarity with the relatives of those who have died or disappeared along migratory routes, with a call to action to make sure these, terrible actions never happen again. Movement Graffiti was supported by 36 local organizations, including Aditus, MGRM, Oasi, Republica, and Richmond Foundation. Obviously, wherever you stand on this topic, remember these are people's lives. At the end of the day, we should be treating them as such, human beings. Moving on to yet another unfortunate story out of the local sphere. Only one puppy has survived out of a litter of 8 that was dumped in the Maltese countryside. A sack full of newborn puppies was apparently discovered in the Zurich countryside. The person who discovered them reported the case directly to animal welfare straight away. And it is apparently thanks to this person's immediate action that one of the puppies was able to be saved. Animal activist Maxime Borch took to social media and shared some photos of the unfortunate incident, saying, "This has to stop once and for all. This behavior is unacceptable." Apparently these puppies were found with the umbilical cords still attached, and it's just distressing and tragic, unfortunately, to see that such cases of animal abuse and animal abandonment are still happening to this day.
Yeah, and super shocking. And when you just think, what goes through someone's mind to dump 8 puppies on the side of the road? Like, I can understand maybe the person can't maintain them or take care of them, but with Facebook, Instagram, all of these amazing channels of communication out there, this person couldn't at least try and find a loving home for these puppies. Puppies go like hotcakes, to so many people out there, just find a home. At the end of the day, 7 puppies have died really unnecessarily. And, maybe it's time for most of us having a discussion about really, really harsh animal cruelty laws to finally stop, crazy things like this happening. Let's hope justice is served. On to our last story. We're going to end things on a positive note. The final 4 of XFactor Malta have been chosen ahead of next Sunday's final showdown to declare the winner and actually win a pretty hefty prize. Yesterday, Temea Farr and Ceci and Chris were eliminated in a semi-final contest. It was actually quite amazing. So for those of you who have been watching XFactor Malta this year, it's been a bit of a lackluster season overall. However, last night's semi-final was actually really amazing to watch, with even judge Howard Keats saying, that he had never seen such a talented crop of semi-finalists, saying, it was probably the best by far he's ever seen so far. That leaves just 4 names left in the competition: Drakkard, Ryan Healy, Lisa Gauci and Cheryl Balsan, who are going to battle it out in one amazing show next Sunday to win the top prize. I'll be watching. Matt, who's your favourite to win it?
I'm going to be very honest, my favourites didn't make it to the final. I was really upset. I was really hoping to see Ceci and Chris in the final. They gave an amazing performance yesterday with Royals by Lord. Temea Farr also gave a really good performance with Adele's recent Easy On Me. If I had to put my money on someone, I think it would be Lisa Gauci. I don't know about you, Joe.
Yeah, Lisa Gauci does seem like the front runner, but it's a bit of an even stack. I'm going that probably Lisa will win it, but I'd like to see maybe, Drakkard steal the post. Just keep in tune. Who do you think is going to win? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, have an evening full of lovin'.